Hi everyone, welcome to On the Other Hand. I'm Ariane Zurcher, and today is my 60th birthday. This feels like a big birthday, bigger than 50. I mean, 50 should have been a big birthday, right? It's half a century. Half a century seems like a big deal, but somehow 50, I don't know, it's still, middle-aged. It's okay. 60? That's feeling like I'm on the outer edge of middle age. That feels like I'm starting to enter some other area that can't be described as middle-aged. And it doesn't feel bad, but I'm definitely more aware of the end being closer than not, which also doesn't feel terrible. I started this channel in February of 2020, of this year. And I did a lot of research about YouTube, and one of the things I came across as I was researching was the term older YouTuber, which basically meant anyone over, I think, 40 or 45 was considered older. So I'm really older. There aren't evidently that many of us, but I'm an older YouTuber by those definitions. And in any case, I started videotaping my stitching, and the whole idea was stitching for left-handed people because there's nothing out there. I don't know if there is more now, but when I was researching this, I think there was one other person that I saw on YouTube who was doing embroidery stitches for left-handed people, and that was West Coast Wool. I think I can put the link to her channel above, and I'll try to do that. If not, I'll put it in the description section. She also hand dyes wools and has a lot of lovely wool and other things, but she was the only person. That was it. And I looked up needle turn applique, and again, there was one person. There was another person who was right-handed who just turned the camera upside down and said, "Here, do this," which seemed kind of, okay. So I felt like there was an area here that needed to be filled. So that was the beginning. And then I did a brainstorming session with my husband, who has an ad agency. And through that set, and his visions are always huge. Mine tend to be smaller. So between the two of us, we were able to sort of come to this other place of where I might go with this channel. So in the beginning, it was just filling a void, demonstrating hand stitching, embroidery stitches, but left-handed. And then it began to expand to become more about encouraging people to explore threads, explore different ways in which a stitch could be, exploring the variations. And then all of my design training kicked in, and I started to add the creative process and design and composition, color, all of those things. And in and around all of that, as I was doing that, things kept evolving. And I started to feel that part of what I wanted to do was inspire and encourage and support people who are wanting to hand stitch, but maybe are really at the beginning. And it's like when I learned how to knit, I'll never forget, I was just a kid, and those needles felt so clumsy, or like learning how to eat with chopsticks. I mean, it just takes practice and a lot of encouragement to keep going and to keep practicing and to keep trying and to try different things and do workarounds, and that it's fun, and it's all about having fun. And if it isn't fun, then things need to be reevaluated so we can get back to the fun. And then as time went on, I started to add to my designs. I began doing videos of the designs. And now, just yesterday, I launched my Patreon page, which is really exciting. And here I am at 60, and I find myself reflecting on my life. I've had a lot of, as we all have, bumps in the road. There's this wonderful parable about a family, and the son breaks his leg, And everyone says, oh my gosh, this is terrible. I am so sorry, you poor thing. And they go to his parents and they say, this is just awful. I'm so sorry, but really bad luck. And then a war breaks out, and all the young men in this town are drafted, except for him. And people come around and they say, wow, good luck. You're not going to have to go to war. And then it goes on, and I can't remember, but there's several other iterations that continue of, seemingly bad luck, and people are saying, oh, this is terrible, I'm so sorry. And then, oh, maybe not so terrible. It's, and it goes back and forth. And the whole point is that these things that we perceive in our lives as being terrible, and they feel terrible at the time, sometimes if we weather them, when we're able to just weather them, they can still feel not great, but it doesn't have to feel quite so horrific. I'm going to give you an example. For 22 years, I had an eating disorder. It was bad, really to the point where my life was kind of put on hold. It was more than that. It felt like I was sliding backwards. And I would overeat. I was bulimic. And I was also anorexic. My best thinking couldn't get me to stop. I would tell myself, today's the day. Today's the day. It's all going to change. But I didn't have any idea how to do any of that. And so, of course, that day turned into just another day like all the others. So it wasn't until I learned how to reach out and ask for help and stop trying to do this on my own. I kept thinking if I just had enough willpower. I couldn't understand because it seemed like I had a lot of willpower in other ways. But in this regard, I seemed to have none. But what I really needed, it turned out, was I needed a community. I needed other people. And I needed people who were willing to hold my hand and help me. And so I was fortunate. I found that. And I was given tools to help me navigate life, which seemed utterly baffling to me, and taught me other ways of coping. And that was key. I've learned to look back on those years, those 2+ decades. It's a long time. I used to look back at them as lost years. There was a lot of regret. But now I have more years where I have been living a different kind of life. And I can look back and I can feel tremendous love and compassion for that young woman. And that's a really nice thing to be able to do, right? Because in the end, it's really ourselves that we need to forgive more than it can feel like we need others to forgive us. But what I'm seeing is that the most important person that I need to forgive me is me. I need to forgive me. And I have. And that feels really good. And so I feel as though I'm launching into my 60s on a pretty positive note. There have been other pretty big speed bumps along the way, things that felt impossible at the time, things that were so beyond my control, things that happened to others that I love, things that just occurred in life that I had absolutely no control over. And they felt completely and utterly impossible at the time. But that's the funny thing about all of this, isn't it? When we get through things that seem unbearable, we can look back and have a different sense of what was happening. It doesn't mean that pain is lessened. It just means that we know we got through it and we survived. I think about now, here I am. I've just turned 60 and I'm working all the time. I am working as hard as as I ever have in my adult life. And I'm doing things that I find really frightening, things I have no idea how to do. And there's a lot of anxiety that can come with that. But as I keep doing them, I keep seeing that I'm able to, and I'm able to figure it out. So the next thing that comes along, a Zoom workshop, for example, I think, well, I'll figure it out. Or my Patreon site, which I've never done live streaming, but I'm going to figure it out. The point is that all of this, I think anything new feels frightening, but it can also feel exciting at the same time. And that's new for me. That's something that's fairly new that I've only really felt in the last 20 years or so. That is such an older person thing to say, isn't it? 20 years or so is new, as opposed to yesterday. But that's the beauty of growing older, isn't it? I mean, we do get to have experiences, and 20 years doesn't seem that long. I mean, in some ways it seems forever, but in other ways it feels like yesterday. And that is one of the perks, I think, of getting older, is the perspective we get. I spent so many years so angry with myself. I don't want to spend any more of my whatever time I have left in life, which I'm hoping is quite a bit. I don't want to spend that time criticizing and picking myself apart. I know I'm not perfect. I know I'm going to continue to make mistakes. But if I can just keep moving forward as best I can with integrity and compassion for myself and everyone else, then those mistakes don't feel quite so horrible, They just feel like welcome to the human race. So those are just some thoughts. I'm hoping that for all you hand stitchers out there, you were stitching while I was talking. And if you weren't, the next video, I promise, we'll do some stitching together. Until next time, here's to stitching together.